This appears to be all that's left of the factory now.
A mysterious safe, colorful cup plates, and do you know the price of eggs in 1825? All that and more, right now.
Alright, so today we're headed to the town of Sandwich, Massachusetts. We're going to be taking a tour of the Sandwich Glass Museum, which tells the story of the Boston and Sandwich Glass Factory, which opened its doors here in Sandwich in the year 1825. The museum itself opened its doors in 1925, 100 years later. And this, being the year 2025, makes it the bicentennial anniversary of the original factory. There's lots of cool glasswork to look at, a glass blowing demonstration, and lots of cool artifacts from the factory. Let's take a look.
The town of Sandwich, originally settled by the English in 1637, is the oldest town on Cape Cod. Sandwich began as an agricultural community, the main export being timber, which was sent back to England and supplemented by coastal fishing. In 1825, however, the landscape of Sandwich would drastically change, all because of one man, Deming Jarvis, a businessman from Boston and former agent of the New England Glass Company out of East Cambridge, Massachusetts. Deming Jarvis has been called the father of the American glass industry. He joined the glass industry in 1809 when he and a group of investors gained control of the company Boston Crown Glass, which produced glass for windows. During the War of 1812, American glass manufacturers lost access to high-quality sand and red lead, which was an essential ingredient for high-quality glass. After the war, British manufacturers began dumping low-priced glass in the United States. This caused many American glass manufacturers, including Boston Crown Glass, to go out of business. In 1818, Jarvis and another group of investors founded the New England Glass Company, where Jarvis researched ways to produce red lead by using domestic sources. By 1819, he was producing red lead, which enabled the production of a better quality glass. In the year 1825, Jarvis began the Boston and Sandwich Glass Company, with its factory right here in Sandwich, Massachusetts. They specialized in glass blowing, glassware, mold-blown glass, and machine-pressed glass. Mr. Jarvis built the company into what one writer calls the most important manufacturer of pressed glass in 19th century America. Deming Jarvis stayed with the company until the year 1858, and it continued until 1888. The Boston and Sandwich Glass Company was very successful, in part due to their focus on quality. The company continued to grow and expand, creating an entire community around the factory, both fueling and depending on the factory's business. The community incorporated all of the factory buildings, the workers' houses, the mercantile buildings, and the train roundhouse. Mr. Jarvis chose the town of Sandwich for his glass factory because of its proximity to the shallow harbor and the prospect of a canal being dug through Cape Cod that would allow for more efficient shipment of goods. The local availability of timber could be used to fuel the glass furnace, and the salt marsh grass could be used for packing material. The beach sand is too impure to make glass, which requires pure quartz silica, so the company would ship in pure silica from New Jersey, New York, and the Berkshire Mountains in western Massachusetts. Glassmakers kept their methods secret, which meant a group of glassmakers could leave a company and cause it to collapse.
This was found in the factory after it had closed. It's believed that this was a very important safe. It's made of wood and fireproofed with sheets of iron. There's even an incredible puzzle in order to find the keyhole to open the safe. It's believed that this must have held the glass recipes and some of the most important ledgers of the company. Wow, really cool.
Jarvis smuggled glassmaking talent in from England and Ireland back to Boston. He also kept a book of various glass recipes. The European glassmakers were skilled in making blown glassware with high lead content, which was highly desirable at the time. The glass company also produced mold-blown wares. In the mid-1820s, glass manufacturers began to experiment with pressing glass with the use of a lever-operated machine which could quickly and easily imprint intricate designs on glassware. The Sandwich Glass Company was quick to utilize the pressing machine, and although Mr. Jarvis did not invent the press, he did receive several patents for improvements in pressing techniques and mold designs. One of the first items easily and cheaply pressed was the cup plate, a small coaster for your teacup. The molds for pressing glass were hand-carved from metal, which often created surface imperfections due to the different cooling rates of the glass and the molds. Small dots were added to draw the human eye away from those surface imperfections. This type of glassware is often referred to as lacy glass. After the Civil War, the glass industry changed in Sandwich and New England in general. The coal country of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia had a cheap and ready supply of fuel for the Midwestern glass furnaces. Sandwich had converted from wood to coal furnaces only in 1836. These companies were able to produce cheaper pressed tableware in soda lime glass, thereby squeezing out the New England pressed glass competition. By 1870, the Boston and Sandwich Glass Company had changed its production line to more delicate, finely blown, engraved, and decorated glassware to appeal to an upscale clientele and compete against the Midwestern factories. At its height, the factory employed hundreds of men, women, and yes, children in the various processes of glassmaking. The community around the factory continued to thrive. The final years of the Boston and Sandwich Glass Company saw a number of economic and labor problems, but the superintendent, Henry Francis Spur, was committed to the factory and its workers and tried to keep the factory afloat. However, in 1887, the Glass Workers Union called for a national strike. In sympathy, the sandwich workers also went on strike. This event ultimately forced the company to put out the furnaces in 1888. The closure of the company caused a severe economic depression, forcing people to leave Sandwich or turn to other professions for jobs. Soon after the closure of the Boston and Sandwich Glass Company, many other New England companies were closed, from Maine to Connecticut. In 1888, several remaining glass workers created a new glass company and attempted to restart the glass industry in Sandwich, none of which would ever gain much footing in the industry, however. By the 1920s, the entire glass industry in Sandwich had come to a complete halt. The factory's buildings were slowly torn down and dismantled. By 1944, there was barely a trace of a factory building near the marsh. A marker at the location of the factory is all that remains of this enterprise. All is not lost, however. To this day, traces of the glass company still remain, in the form of glass fragments. Serious glass collectors, tourists, and artisans seek out these small treasures in the marshes and on the beaches. Jewelry designers could polish the glass fragments to look like jewels and then design settings for them. It's sad to think this once thriving factory, which was so integral to the community it helped build, has been lost to time. I long for the days when everything was made from natural materials. To me, it's so much more wholesome to hold in my hands a product made of wood, metal, stone, and yes, of course, beautiful glass.
Well, here are some cool artifacts from the factory. This heavy iron lock and key was removed from the watch room. And here we see the first page of the Boston and Sandwich Glass Company payroll book from April 3rd to April 29th, 1826. The first name on the payroll was that of Gaffer Benjamin Haynes. As gaffer, or master glassblower, Haynes was head of a shop or group of glassblowers producing glass at the furnace. He earned $62 for the pay period. During that month, his charges at the company's store for provisions amounted to $16.52, nearly 1/4 of his salary. The cost of goods included a dozen eggs for just 10 cents, gun caps for 8 cents, and sugar for 37 cents.
Weighing in at 130 pounds, the factory bell hung in the main building of the watch house of the Boston and Sandwich Glass Factory. The bell rang 3 times a day, calling the glass workers to their various shifts.
Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. If so, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a mean comment. Once again, thanks for watching. Bye.